tired because I've been in a car for like 3.5 hours. So it's better to keep standing. But firstly, I'd like to thank you all very much for inviting me here today and waiting for me to get here. And I know how embarrassing it is to arrive late, but I'm truly and really sorry for that. But I can't help the traffic in Calcutta. When I come to India, I see many people talking about being next in line to, their inheritance, and who's the eldest and who's going to get more, and who's the youngest and who's going to get less, and all of that kind of thing. But people actually fail to see that there is actually another line, a completely different line that is totally lost to humanity these days. They don't see that line, and that line to me is the line of death. That is the line that we were forced into, and many such children are forced into every single day of their lives. It's a queue that we are put into against our wishes and against our will. And like I said to you, my two siblings before me were in the queue, and they didn't, they got selected. We didn't. Myself and my younger sister Vanessa, we were turned away from the queue, so we were very lucky. In the same line, after my sister Vanessa, were twins, a boy and a girl called Kimberly and Alan, and we lost them too to poverty and malnutrition. And we stayed literally, as far back as I can recall, up to the age of 4 or 5, we were living behind people's houses, in their verandas, at the back of their houses. If they gave us some shelter, they took us in for one night, just the kids and not my mom, and so on. And then finally one lady said, well, there's a space under my steps. If you like, you can stay there. So my mom agreed, because it was a home after all. And so we put a plastic sheet and we lived there. Just about 3 feet away from where we were, people bathed every day, and they filled their water, and they went to the toilet, and they washed their clothes. It was like a common, area. And we lived there for months and months and months on end. I have really and truly no idea how long. It was very long. But what I do remember and what remains in my memory are few very, very difficult times that we went through. And one of the times I can remember is myself and my little sister. We were about 4 and 3, or probably 4 and 5, or whatever. And there was this man who used to sit in the lane and fry these puris and cook these curries. And every day we would run up to him and we would stare at the food, and he would splash hot oil on us and say, get away, stop staring at the food, because my clients won't come otherwise. So we used to run a few yards and run back, still stare at him, till he used to get very upset, and he used to pick up a piece of paper, put some puris in it, put some curry in it, and shove it in our hands and say, now go away, and if you come back tomorrow, I'll really burn you. But every day we went back, and every day he fed us, because he really loved us. So these are the things you can't forget. But by remaining in that area, under those extreme conditions, we got very, very ill, us two little sisters. So my mom actually spoke to a lady who she knew called Mrs. Cleophas, and she said, will you look after the 2 girls for me? Because they're getting ill, and they're girl children running up and down. And she agreed. So my mother said, all right, please be grateful to her, please obey her, please listen to her. And so she put us to live there. And my sister Vanessa is very, very, very fair, and for being so fair, she was called a lot of names over time, but she's blonde completely and whatever. And Mrs. Cleophas loved her and not me very much. So we would sit on the floor and she would teach us our ABC and our 1, 2, 3. And my sister was very naughty. So she used to, when Mrs. Cleophas used to go in the kitchen, she used to like scratch a line through my book or throw some water on my book and get me into trouble. And when Mrs. Cleophas came back in the room, she used to say, why did you do that? And my sister, did you do that? I used to say yes, because I never wanted to get my sister into any trouble. And one day from under her little cupboard, I saw a cockroach come through on the floor. So being a child, I got a little afraid, and she sensed that. So she had like an Indian style toilet about the width of that board, which was like 3 or 4 feet. And it was quite a high ceiling, and it was covered in giant flying cockroaches. The whole toilet was covered. And every single day she used to catch me by my ear, take me to the toilet, shove me in there, put off the light, and close the door from the outside. And this carried on for months on end, till eventually I only used to look out the window and see that it was getting dark, and I used to just wet myself or cry, because I couldn't imagine that the time is coming for her to put me in there. And my sister was too little to understand, how serious it was. And whenever my mom visited, she would always say, I hope you're being grateful. I hope you're saying your please and thank yous. And I hope you're being her. And I hope. So my mom never really saw what she was doing to us, because before my mom got there, she used to put little ribbon bows in our hair and dress us up and make us look all sweet and tidy for my mom, So we never got a word in, and my mom was a person where gratitude was the name of the game. That is it. You just don't talk in front of elders. And this carried on till one day my mom did come, and she saw me in a very terrible state, and so she took us from there. And I remember very clearly we had to walk home, about 2 or 3 hours home, which was back to our home under the stairs. And it was an awfully long walk, because we didn't even have tram fare or money to get home. But it was the happiest walk and the happiest day in my life, because I was leaving that bathroom behind and that toilet. So from there, we stayed there for another few months, and then we moved. My dad came out of the Salvation Army, where he was being cared for. And we came out of there, and my dad managed to get us one little room place, which is probably 8 by 10 feet, in Kidapur, in a proper full-fledged slum, where 3,000 people shared 3 toilets, basically. And we would line up in the mornings with about a minimum of about 20 to 30 to 40 people to just use that one toilet. But of course, there were only 3. And we used to fill water from right around the building and bring it right to our house, sometimes slip in the mud and, get hurt and whatever else. But the reason I say that the poorest of the poor was so extremely kind to us is because it was in that, my 2 sisters died before me, so I wasn't born, so I didn't see that, but I knew that that had happened. When the twins died, we were in Dum Dum, and the twins died in my presence, but I was very little at the time. But I did see them being buried in tea cases, because we couldn't even afford coffins or anything like that. But when the 5th sibling, Susan, was born, she was born again totally malnourished and, very, very dehydrated. And the doctors told my mom, take her home. And I remember my mom putting her on the bed in that little room where we didn't have any electricity, no water, no food. And my mom saying, well, this is the child, she has 3 days to live. The doctors want us, the family, to spend the last few days with her, so that's it. She was so malnourished that you could really see her eyes were right at the back of her head. Like you could literally put a needle through and the needle would touch her eye at the back of the head. She was very, very bad case of malnourishment. However, when I saw that little one, I didn't see that. I loved her. I just wanted her to save her. So I ran to the tea shop at the side, and remember there was a guy called Ashok there. And I said, will you give me some milk for my sister? And he said, not free. And I said, please, she's dying, And I showed him the little envelope with these. The doctor had given my mom little bits of paper with some powder in it, medicine, all wrapped up. So I showed it to him and I said, look, we've got to mix this, we've got to give it to her. So he put a bucket of water in this big container of milk, but every single day he gave me that steel bowl of milk, and every day I took it home and I mixed that powder in it and I pressed her mouth like really pressed her mouth and put the medicine down her throat, and I fanned her and I prayed for her and I loved her. And she survived, and she topped a university in London, and her picture was on every tube and every bus, and today she's married to an Australian boy and she's moved to Australia. So, you know, I need to tell you that I'm here today to talk to people like you, and you know, I've been talking all of this week to different schools and colleges and everyone, and trying to create an awareness that, you know, even in some of the worst cases on the planet, there lies potential. And we need more and more people to help our little kids in India who are really in that queue and in that line, and forced into that line against their wishes, against their will, just like we were. The poorest of the poor helped us to such an extent that I'm often asked on BBC interviews, etc., that, you know, who do you think was richer, you or the person who gave you the bad potatoes or tomatoes to, you know, cook? And I said, well, obviously they, because they had a business, we didn't, you know. But there was this lady by the corner, and she used to save up all these bad tomatoes and potatoes for us. Every day I used to go and collect it from her, cut off the bad part and have it. We were so poor that one day I remember the meat man down the corner, he used to save these bones for us. And we used to run down the road and collect the bones and make soup. But one day I collected the bones and I made the stew the next morning, and we had just a tiny little stove, very tiny. So I started to cook that stew, and because the stove was so little, must have started about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I must have finished about 4 o'clock in the evening. But my little siblings, Vanessa, Neil and Susan, they kept coming to the dish and saying, is it ready or not? Is it ready or not? I had to say, no, it's not ready yet. Wait, it has to cook. The potatoes take a very long time to cook. And then eventually when it was ready, I was so exhausted with looking after them, filling the water, doing the, you know, the clothes washing and cooking, and all in no electricity and anything, that I actually, when I was carrying that vessel, my sister and myself still discuss this still today, when I was carrying that vessel into the room, it was like just 2 steps. I dropped the whole thing because I was so tired. So my little brother and sister, they started to cry, like, we waited so long and now you dropped it, you know. But we were so terribly hungry that we picked it all up from the floor and we still ate it, and we still had a dinner, you know. We didn't care really if it had fallen or whatever. So that's how badly off we were. And I want to talk to schools, and I want to talk to universities and colleges, etc., because I want to tell children that, look, irrespective of the circumstances you're born into, you can make that change in your life if you want to. You know, I do believe that if you are born poor, then it's not your fault, but if you die poor, it is your fault, you know, because you can do something about it. And I've come up with these excellent training programs. I've put an E3 training program together, which is based on a UNESCO report, which is education, employability and empowerment. And I plan to start this center in Harborough for 200 young kids to take them through the 3 modules of the program, because I do believe that there is hope, and if we can help these children, then they can go back and help their families, because unfortunately, even in my family, there were just too many kids, you know, and there are too many kids, and we can't help that sometimes. But if you can empower just one person, even one person, they go back and they can empower their entire family, just in the same way, you know, that I did. And I think none of the other schools wanted to take us in, because we never had any political connections. We had no money, and we had really nothing to give the school, so they didn't want us. But this school took us in with no questions asked. And you know, coming from such a poverty-stricken background, you actually suffer with a lot more than the naked eye can see. And most of the kids saw us with torn shoes or the elastic loose on our socks or, yellow collared shirts or whatever. But the teachers in that school and the matrons actually saw what was within. And when a child is malnourished, you probably know this better than I do, that you're very slow in learning, So for example, my mom was a very good friend of the PD mistress. And because she was my mom's friend, a normal child would be given 3 chances to jump across, on the broad jump during sports day. But I was given about 9, and I still couldn't make it. I was that nervous. A, because you're slow, and B, because of the trauma that lady had caused me. So she would still say to me, look, you can try, and don't worry, no one's going to look at you, you can do it. But when I used to get to the end of the pit, I used to still just run right across. I could just not jump. I had no confidence at all, and I kept falling. Up to the age of 13 or 14, I would just keep falling for no rhyme or reason because I had a nervous disposition. And even in front of my first boyfriend, I always used to fall. And my sister used to tease me saying, now for heaven's sake, please just don't fall in front of the boys, please, But I couldn't help it, that's just the way I was. And I remember it's being sports day, and the slowest girl is always put as 3rd position in the relay, and I was given that position. And my elder sister, saying to me, look, you're in 3rd position, but if we do not win the relay or we lose because of you, you better keep running right out of that school gate because don't come back. But I still lost. And the other day I spoke at my school, day before yesterday, and I said, one of the guys in the room actually texted me before that, and he said, Jill, I just met Julia Saha, and she sends her love to you. She'd love you to call her. But she says that she remembers you beating her in broad jump because you came first and she came second. I said, give her my love too. I will call her. But there is absolutely no truth in me beating her because that never happened. Trust me, I know that I beat no one and I beat nothing, So that is how a child, we used to have wounds that would just never heal. It would take months and months and months to heal. We were so slow in class that if a teacher had to explain something 3 times, she would have to explain the same thing to us about 20 times. And we would still not get it, But they were so encouraging to us that they said, all right, Haslam, you stay back after school and I'll give you half an hour more of my time, or you come early in the morning, or, I remember my little sister Vanessa, my mom was taking us back to school and she literally threw herself down on the floor saying, I'm not going back to school because you haven't even given us a tube of toothpaste, and it's very embarrassing, when every girl has everything and we just don't even have laces or like a tube of toothpaste. Mom, you can't do this to us, And my mom used to say, well, if you want to walk, you have an option, otherwise I'll drag you, but I'm going to take you back to school. So she would take us back and we would get admitted, and the matrons would just understand that we just didn't have. So they would find an old tube of toothpaste to give us, or an old church dress or something, and we just got, through that. And yeah, it's been very, very difficult times. When we were in the slum, I remember when my little sister was brought home and she was almost, dying. Diwali time, they threw these chocolate bombs in front of our house, hour after hour after hour after hour, and the smell of cordite was just difficult. You couldn't even breathe in that one little room. And apart from the smell of cordite, you had that blasting noise and this carried on as soon as it got dark for weeks and months on end. And I remember holding my little sister's ears and, just trying to save her and not myself, but just her basically. And during Holi time, we would be pelted with water balloons at our chests everywhere, and we would be drenched, whatever. But every time we came home and we said, Mom, this is what's happening, my dad always used to say, look, I'm going to show you the difference. If you go to a proper school and you pick a 14-year-old or a 17-year-old boy, you'll find that he will not behave in this way because he's being taught, he's being educated. You will get the one or two naughty boys, but you wouldn't get them all like that. The reason you're getting them, most of them like that, is because there is a sadness. And the sadness is that these boys aren't getting educated. They don't know. There's just so many of them. So you could be, in that too. So please, I'm asking you to just be a little bit more understanding. So my dad could have gone out and fought or asked us to fight, but he never ever taught us that way. I remember going to school once, and my mom, myself and my little sister Vanessa, we used to run around the whole area collecting these little rags of cloth from all the tailors, all the colored cloth, and we would bring it home in plastic bags. And my mom used to stitch these patchwork quilts for us and little coats. And we wore those coats to school, and many of the girls would say, "But where's your full blue coat? We all have a full blue coat. What are you wearing, And we would come home and say, "But Mom, we need a full blue coat. What have you given us to wear?" And my dad would just, play Dolly Parton's song for us, "My coat of many colors." And if you probably heard the song, but if you heard the song, we were so proud of our coats after that. I still have those 2 coats with me till this day. And I love those 2 little coats because it means a lot. And I remember having a boyfriend, and he always said to me, "If you see my brother coming, you have to pretend like you don't know me, right? Don't talk to me." And, we cannot go down that lane because my aunt lives down that lane, right? So, and he would always try to be, avoid me in some way or the other. And I used to feel like, do you want to be friendly with me or you don't want to be friendly with me? Make up your mind, But at some point you don't like me, and at some point you like me. I didn't get it. So I went home to my dad and I said, "What is wrong with me? Why does he treat me this way?" And my dad said, "Look, I can get into all the details and tell you why his family won't allow it, and we are very poor and all that. But I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say for you to listen to again Dolly Parton's song, if you've listened to it, which is called Chicken Every Sunday." I really thought that song was written for me because it was so apt, in terms, of the lyrics, where she clearly sings about how her boyfriend was a very, very rich person and she was very poor, but how her mother said, "You have potential and you can be much, much bigger than him, so don't worry about it today." So my dad and my mom always taught us with quotes like Maya Angelou's quotes, "I can be changed by my circumstances, but I refuse to be reduced by it." So he used to say, "You can be reduced if you allow it. So if you don't allow it, then you always have a choice, God's given you very many gifts, but 2 of the main gifts he's given you is the human brain, which you have to know how to use, and second is the power of choice. You either allow it or you don't allow it. You always have that choice." And my parents always helped us in that manner, and the school helped us in a different way. So we used every single opportunity we could, and I think I want to be able to give back to the country that saved our lives. I want to give back to the children who deserve that opportunity. And now I'm in a position to do so. So I'm really happy, and I don't care, how many hours I spend in a car, and, how many schools I have to speak to. And today I was at the chief guest at Calcutta International School, which was a real honor because it was Teachers' Day. And I was very, very excited to be there, and I spoke to the children about how important teachers are, that they don't see your external, clothes, etc., but they see what's internally going on, and they actually work with that. But sadly, nowhere in the world is there a pageant for the soul. There is a pageant for, Miss Universe and Mr. Best Body and whatever else, but there isn't a pageant for the soul, right? And these people educate and change lives every single year. Hundreds and hundreds of children pass through them, but they are hardly ever recognized, and they're hardly ever given any kind of awards. And I actually made the similarity between, teachers and an actor, and see how much, an actor would get just by him dancing or singing, or a footballer who just kicks a football. But these people who are in the business of changing lives get little or no recognition. And I think after that, the principal said, after that every kid ran out and started writing cards to their teachers and running around with gifts, and the principal said, you know, Jill, I've never seen these children behave this way, and I'm so sorry that they mobbed you like that. And I was like, no, it's absolutely fine. You know, my idea was to get the message across, and I want them to understand and respect what we had. And to me, they've been instrumental, you know, in changing my life. So I just want to do the same, and I thank you all for the opportunity, you know, for having me here today.
Can we ask you one question?
You can ask me as many questions as you like.
I'd like to know something about the present what you're doing. You're a successful entrepreneur, we understand. Can you elaborate on that one?
Sure. I have a 20-year career in banking, which I don't, you know, work in any longer. I don't do that anymore. But I'm now a motivational speaker, and I travel the world speaking to people. I am also a corporate trainer, and I do a lot of trainings in corporates, but I also do a lot of trainings for non-corporates. So for women's organizations, schools, colleges, universities, and all of that. I also do a lot of work in the philanthropic world, and I currently work with the Medical College Hospital with thalassemia children, and I'm the ambassador for them. So on the 1st, we just had a blood donation camp where I took about 50, 60 people, and we donated a lot of blood to them. I have several people sending in a lot of checks and a lot of money transfers for those children, because I believe that the government can only afford 10% of the treatment for the children that come in. The rest are just left to die. And I think that that is just unacceptable to me. So whenever I'm here, I try and spend a day with those kids. And they're very sad cases there, because some kids actually work in people's houses and pay for their own treatment. And they need blood transfusion. They're reduced to being so weak, and they don't have any food. They come into hospital from villages that are so far away with just little tiffin carriers of food. And I recognize those tiffin carriers because I know what's in them. It can hardly hold anything. And so I spend as much time as I can with them. I'm also working with clubs and institutions in Australia and New Zealand, etc., who have offered to hold dances and events and send some of the money, you know, back for these kids. I've also put a proposal together to start a mobile medical service for India, mainly Calcutta first. Everything Calcutta first, and then the other metropolitan cities, because that's what's closest to my heart. But the mobile medical service will actually reach people who are the disabled, the blind, or the very small kids. Because I believe if you can walk and talk, you can get yourself to a hospital. Just like I got my mom to a hospital, to a free hospital, where she unfortunately didn't make it. She succumbed to cancer. But even then, I think we need to help the people who can't even stand, the aged who are too weak, and the little kids who just do not even know that they're too ill. When I was putting my proposal together for the E3 program, I actually discovered some statistics that shocked me, and I believe that 20,000 people, a minimum of 20,000 people actually sleep every night, never to wake up again. And that doesn't happen because they have some disease or they're ill, but that really happens because they die of hunger. And to me, that is truly amazing. After I discovered that, I don't think I can wake up any morning of my life and not think that actually somewhere in the world people have died of natural causes, yes, but 20,000 people have actually not woken up because they're too hungry and they've succumbed to that. And that shocks me. I just cannot live with myself if that happens. And I want to work as hard as I can and do what I can to help them.
What is your message for the next generation? What do you expect the next generation to do?
That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to get to every school and every university, and just basically, the human brain doesn't develop till the age of 25, and I think that is the right age to try and get them to understand these things and make the difference. And so far, I've been quite successful with that, because we've had tears after the speeches and hundreds of questions, and I've been kept back for 4 and 5 hours, and it's been really good. But my message to them is, the key to success is when you refuse to accept the circumstances in which you find yourself. If you accept that this has happened to me, and I see this all the time, that they say to themselves, that's just how it is. My parents were poor, so I'm going to be poor, and I'm in this school and I'm going to remain here, and I just don't have a way out, and whatever little help I'm getting, I'm grateful for that. No, that is not true. You can help yourself. You can get out, just like I did. I made up my mind in that slum that I was going to get out, and I was going to get my siblings out, and I was going to stop this generation of death in my family. And we were not going to be in line to any more death in our family. And I think that awareness needs to be created. And I think with the kids who can afford a lot, and who are mean to the poorer kids, I think we need to make them more aware of what their actions have on the poorer kids. Because in schools this is happening. Competition is so great in schools that it's very, very sad. The rich kids have so much and the poor kids don't. And that is resulting in them, developing, inferiority complexes and, confidence issues, shying away from things, as well as stealing, robbing, and everything else, just to get that branded t-shirt or that branded pair of trainers or whatever else. And I think that stems from the fact of a problem being with competition. Everyone wants to be an Aishwarya Rai and a Shah Rukh Khan, in this country at least. And I think what I'm trying to do is to show them that even if you had 10 plastic surgeries, you couldn't be Aishwarya Rai or Shah Rukh Khan, because everyone is different, And if I always ask them, why don't you look at your history books and show me throughout the course of history if there have ever been 2 Shah Rukh Khans or 2 Julia Roberts or 2 Aishwarya Rais or 2 Mahatma Gandhis. There just isn't. And the reason for that is because each one of us are very precious in our own way. We all have a gift. We all have something special. That's why not everyone is a doctor, and not everyone is a surgeon, and not everyone is a footballer, because it just can't be that way. You've got to find that strength in yourself and work towards it. Like President Obama says, if you're walking the path and you are willing to keep walking, a day has to come when you will get there. And I need them to understand that. And I always say to them, look, Shakira, and if Shakira can dance and Kylie Minogue can sing, then why can't I speak? We're all the same height, aren't we? So that is what you need to take away, not what they look like, because you're never going to look like them.
Have you written any book on this, your experience?
Yes, that's the reason why I'm in front of you today, sir. The book is called Indian Full Stop, English Full Stop. And it's just as I spoke to you today, it's just on the story of my life and what we went through, the good, the bad, and the great. And it's telling the story from both sides, of what happened truly. Because when I trained to be a motivational speaker and a therapist and a counselor, what I am today, I wanted to come up with a tool that I could put into every little girl and boy's hands and say, you know what, you can do it too. But by me telling them that, they wouldn't believe it, because it's very hard, when you talk about beliefs and passion and all of that. Not every kid gets it. But if I were to tell my story really, truly, and honestly, and bring myself and show them that, look, you can go now and look at my first home, it still stands. You can go and look at my second home, it's still there. And if I just show them that, look, this is what I've made of my life, then I stand a good chance of creating, maybe the next Mother Teresa or something like that, which actually is what my real intention is.
Anybody else? I have a question.
Sure, sir.
I was just wondering, places like India, and basically your sort of focus areas are people who have done Europe. Now, their language is different from our English. How do you effectively communicate with them? Through our ego, does it carry the emotions that you want to transmit? Or do you sometimes feel frustrated that you are not getting through to what you're trying to tell because of the language barrier?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, yeah, I don't speak Bengali, and but you know, we've up to this date we have never had a single problem with any place that we've been to, whether Payali or the Thalassemia children, and they don't speak a word of English. But my sister speaks fluent Bengali, so she translates every single speech, and it's been really one of the greatest experiences for kids wherever we've been, because she speaks the language fluently, so I don't have any problems right there. But I'm hoping to learn. If we go to an organization where we know that the kids are not English-speaking kids, then yes, she definitely comes with me. I will put out some videos that we've taken. Yesterday, in fact, we were at Payali, which is a center for girls, and they don't speak a word of English. And it was just the most phenomenal experience that we had there, because the principal there said that these girls are, they lack confidence, etc. so much. They're very, very poor. And they lack so much confidence, etc. that they don't even speak in class. They're just not capable of it. But after I spoke and she translated it, we had them come up to the mic and speak a lot, and even cry and even hug us, and oh my God, and I was totally mobbed. Like, the children were all over my head and my shoulders and all over my back and all over my place. But it was the greatest experience. So the language doesn't have any barrier with us, luckily.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, friends. First, I introduce myself. My name is Jillian Haslam. I am the president of Rotary of Salt City this year. I express my heartfelt thanks to Rotary of Salt Lake Central and the president and secretary for making such a wonderful forum, organizing such a wonderful forum. Actually, it was a coincidence. I was not aware of Ms. Jillian Haslam till last Sunday. I go to a college in a remote village near
I leave tomorrow morning to Delhi for a day, and then I'm back in the first week of December.
Then you just keep in touch with the email in case
I bought Times of India last Sunday, and there I found this article about Ms. Jillian Haslam. I was so inspired that immediately I got that part Xerox and put them on the board.
I'll give you my card as well. Thank you.
Very poor people, and they came and asked me
PP, Papa Delta Boss,
PP.
PG,
Okay.
57.
57 at yahoo.co.in.
And suddenly, when Mohammed sent me that email that you are organizing this, still I just couldn't go with it, because I didn't notice really that she is the lady about whom I put that notice in my college. And today when I came here and saw this bacon, so I was really surprised. And it was really, it gave a lot of inspiration among the college people, college students in Chile. And I do believe that whatever she said, and if we can be a part of this movement, that you just bring one good human being, one good man who can sacrifice and create more people like that, then it's a great job. As we always say in Rotary, that you create one good Rotarian, then the job is done. The job is over. Because that's a chain system. So that is what I wanted to express. I couldn't check my emotion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, I'd like to add to that, if I don't mind. You know, Mahatma Gandhi said, when a very small group of people come together with a determination in their mission, they have the capability of changing the course of history. And I truly believe that with the Rotary Club.
Thank you. Ma'am, I think you won't mind if I take the photograph with you.
Not at all.
Because it will be still more inspirational. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jillian. It was a wonderful evening, and your words, I'm sure, every day touches a lot of kids and those who are facing insurmountable difficulties in life. And people like you who are the leaders who can really make a definite change in the society. So I wish there were more and more people like you who are devoted their lives to do this. And we in Rotary, very small way, as individuals, we try to do the same, but our impacts are rather localized. It's not localized as per se, but Rotary being international, I would say, the local effort on a massive scale. But outreach is not very good because our members can't be everywhere. But still, Rotary is doing very well as far as alleviating poverty, disease, and health relations in a lot of cases. In any case, having you here this evening was really a good experience for all of us. And I'm also very happy to see quite a few members from the other Rotary clubs, because I didn't want to have this privilege all by myself, because I read the first article which came in the Telegraph, an intersection on 20th of August. Sorry, 20th of July. And then I got in touch with her through the email. And actually, the day I got the confirmation that yes, she's coming. And the next day I found there was another article in the Answer, which was also equally well covered. And then I thought that I must involve as many people as possible to spread the message of what she's trying to do. So thank you again, Jillian, and I'm sure we're all inspired and we're trying in Rotary to do as much as we can to take it forward.
Thank you very much.
And now may I request our first president, charter president, Mr. Mundi, to present a small memento in memory of the visit to our club. Silence, no comment.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my privilege.
Not at all. Thank you very, very much, sir. I'm very grateful to you. You have to turn it this way. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Very, very grateful to you.
All right. That leaves us to have her with us for a small fellowship. So I invite all of you to join us in the fellowship.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
This is my garden from the press.
Yeah.
I want to have some
Of course, of course. Thank you.
Come to them.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, yes. I'll be back in December. Okay. how I have very little. It's too much for me. That's too much. Why should I waste it? No, I don't bring it. Just a whole bit of water. My first conversation with maybe before, please, I'd love to. Yes, everything's there. Everything's yes. Oh no, sorry, no, I promise. Yeah, please. In fact, you know what I will do?